All right. Hello, loves. It is Javon A. Frazier, also known as Your Guiding Light. And I am so excited to be introducing a new segment called Her Story, Our Strength. And the reason why I wanted to start this segment is because, I always talk to you guys about my life. I'm an open book, right? I've written the book. I've been there. I've done that. But I do that because I believe that there is power in sharing our stories, right? Like since 2014, when I first started talking about myself, I've had so many women come up to me like, oh, when I read your book, it helped me tell my story, or, oh, I can resonate with that so much. So I really wanted to bring that back to the Hidden Abundance Boutique and not just share more about my story, but I wanted to give other women the opportunity to share their story as well. Because again, I feel like when one of us speaks up, when one of us stands on our truth, when one of us, taps into our womb space and heals ourselves, it's happening in the collective, right? It happens for all of us. So I'm so excited to be here today with my good sis, Leah Deluzio. Okay, so Leah, this is Women's History Month, as you know, right? Like this is the time of the month when we highlight and celebrate women's accomplishments. And so I really wanted to bring you on because I absolutely love the work that you are doing to, we don't want to say empower, right? To remind women of their power, to help them go within, to help them reclaim what it means to be a woman. But can you tell us a little bit about who you are and the work that you're doing?
Yes. Hi, I'm so honored to be here. And I just love what you're doing with this new series. It's so important to share the stories of women and provide spaces and opportunities to share gifts, share medicine, share truth. So just honoring you for this space and excited to talk more. So yeah, I am a women's circle facilitator, a ceremonialist, and an event creatress, I like to say. And I hold sacred space for women. From women's circles to workshops to retreats, online things, really in an effort to reawaken sisterhood and guide women to remembering their power, their beauty, their magic. Exactly like you said, I used to use the word empower and empowerment a good bit. And then over time, it just didn't resonate because I feel like these opportunities that I have are to be a guide and just to create opportunities for women to remember. So I just love that you said that, and it definitely resonated. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm about. And I truly, there's a quote that says something like a woman in alignment with her divine assignment. And I feel like I've reached that point. I love what I do. I'm so inspired by other women. And it truly is an honor and a blessing to be able to do this sacred work on the daily.
I love that. Love you, but you know that already.
I love you too.
So in order to do the work that you do, you have to have a level of awareness about what it means to be a woman, but also your own history and the women who have came before you in your bloodline. So can you talk to me a little bit about the women who've come before you, your traditions and those sorts of things, and how it's helped you do the work that you're doing today?
I love that question. Yes, I think it's so important to honor those that came before us. In every circle that I hold, we take a moment to honor all women who have sat in circle before us. So it's so beautiful to look back and see those foundational pieces in your life that maybe you didn't even realize were impactful until now when you reflect. But yes, I was lucky enough to just grow up around a lot of inspiring women, strong women, powerful women, women using their voices. So I'm very close to my mother, Martha, and she is one of those people that is like an instant friend. She's meeting friends in the lines at the grocery store, the post office, anytime I take her to an event I'm hosting, she's talking to more people than I am. So she's very welcoming in that way. And she actually had an event background. So I grew up with her. She was doing work for the chamber in different festivals. So I got into the world of connection and creating spaces for people to connect kind of through seeing her do that work. And her mother was a history teacher. So I grew up, her mother, Jane. I want to make sure I recognize all of the Janes. My middle name is Jane and my daughter's middle name is Jane. So my grandmother, Jane, want to honor that namesake, but she was a history teacher, is still living. But she was a history teacher. And I grew up with a deep appreciation for those roots, for knowing that it really did matter to look back at these stories of people that had walked before us and to understand the impact and the ripple effects that their journeys had. So I think that that's a piece that I truly have taken through my relationship with her. She's a beautiful storyteller. And I find that, I think that that's something that inspires me to find the stories of women, which is why I resonate so deeply with what you're doing here. I love hearing the stories of women. I love sitting around and having those conversations. And I think that that piece is probably from sitting around my grandmother's coffee table and having conversations and hearing her tell stories. My grandmother on the other side, Ivory, a very strong woman, really philanthropic. She really was always out in the community wanting to help, using the resources that she was blessed with to help others. Very pay it forward, a servant's heart. Deep rooted in her faith. She was a Catholic woman and very, very deep rooted in tradition and ritual. So I do think that my appreciation for tradition and ritual probably stems with that. And I would like to touch on one other woman in my lineage, my godmother, my mother's older sister, Melinda, who I call Gigi. She is very drawn to tracking and honoring our ancestry. So I have kind of become the new generation record and wisdom holder, I would say, like the keeper of all of this, but she's really done the work. She, went on to those different softwares you can use and tracked our family on that side so far back, and then bound our history in these beautiful books that I can then sit with my children when I'm homeschooling them and share actual stories, show them, different like land plots, show them, the different years that people were traveling from other countries. And luckily on the other side, we have the same. So I'm very blessed in that way, where I do have actually resources at my fingertips to look back and see some of these names and pictures and feel into that lineage.
I love that. It's so interesting because a few years ago, I actually started the journey of doing the same thing, with the ancestry websites and just kind of figuring out where I've come from. And it was very interesting to see the documents and family members' signatures and things like that, and different, stories or their marriage certificates and all of that. And so I love that you have that readily available to share with your children. And listening to all that you shared just now, and it's so amazing because I know you today and I've worked with you, and had intimate sister conversations with you, but the things that you're sharing today are new to me. And so listening to that, and then knowing what I know about you and the work that you're doing, I love that, because we always talk about, with me being a womb wellness advocate, I always talk about how when a woman is born, she carries all of the eggs she's ever going to carry, right? And so we essentially have our grandmothers and great grandmothers, DNA inside of us, and their emotions and their hopes and their dreams and all of that. And so just listening to the work that you're doing today, and, in comparison to the work that the women who have come before you have done, I can see where, it's tying into maybe some of their hopes and dreams and aspirations and interests and things like that. And I just think that is so, so beautiful. And so I know you have a lot of history with the women that you know and you have, physically seen and been able to spend time with and glean from. But are there any traditions that maybe have been passed down from generations of women that you haven't met? some stories that you can share about like your culture and how that shows up or inspires you today?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I'm definitely on the journey of discovery, I would say. So I'm blessed to have these massive multi-page documents at my fingertips and have been in the beginning stages of exploring them, I would say, over the past maybe 18 months. I did a beautiful immersion with a woman named Raven, who I like to call as an ancestress, right? So she holds powerful spaces for people to do ancestral reclamations, to reclaim some of these stories, to dive back in energetically, emotionally, and then, obviously with the research as well. And I did that probably about 18 months ago. And that really started my excitement. I already, because I'm the responsible one, I'm the Capricorn, I'm the oldest, grandchild on one side. And I was past these books already kind of for that responsibility factor. But I've been looking at them from a soul-based place here over the past 18 months. And it's really beautiful. So I'm just learning a lot. The Celtic tradition is something that comes up on both my mother and father's side. So there's some Scottish and there's some Irish there, and that's predominant, I would say. So I've been looking into that. And what I love about it is that a lot of those traditions, as you go back, are very nature-based. They're very cyclical. It's really connecting to the earth, honoring the cycles. And through my work with tapping into the energy of the sacred feminine, that's exactly what I feel into, is these cycles, is our connection to earth. So it's just really beautiful to know that I have ancestors that were very much honoring the changing of seasons. And here we are, so many years later, and I'll be holding a women's gathering on spring equinox to honor the changing of the seasons. So it's really beautiful things like that. That I've just kind of been discovering along the way. And it's really fun, I have a cool story I would love to share if we have time. After this sacred ancestral reclamation journey that I did with Raven, I really started, holding space for my ancestors, just really opening my heart up to, what messages are here for me? How can I learn more? And so, conversations with relatives, really starting to look through those documents. But one day I was actually at Goodwill, and I am like a thrift store, consignment store junkie. Like, I love a good treasure hunt. And I always love to look through the books. And so I was there one day, and actually was there for, just kind of hunting around, and something called me to go to the book section, like I always do. So I was like, okay. And I'm like, looking, I almost said scrolling. What a digital age we live in. I was looking through all of the books, and I went to walk away, and something so deep within me was like, no, not yet. You haven't found it yet. And I went back, and within 2 seconds of kind of hearing that message, and I have this book in front of me, this beautiful, old book called The Celtic Spirit. It's Daily Meditations for the Turning Year by Caitlin Matthews. The Celtic Spirit, it jumps at me, and I knew it was meant for me. And it's a beautiful book because every single day it pulls and teaches some tradition, some history, and some practices of the Celtic spirit, of some of these ancient Celts and their spiritual, teachers, and how they lived in communion with all things and sought harmony between nature and humans. And it has been such a blessing to have this book. And I really think I was divinely guided there. It was like I opened up, my awareness to, hey, I want to commune with my ancestors. I want these messages. I want this medicine. I want to carry on what was important in our family line. And then this book found me, and it was just the coolest thing.
I love that. So let me ask you a question, because I have a book that is similar, right? It's Sacred Woman by Queen Afua. And what I've realized going through that book is that a lot of the things that I was just innately doing, it just kind of came natural to me. After reading that book, or, not even after, because I'm not done yet, but reading that book, I realized that there were some things that traditionally, that I was doing today that I didn't realize was maybe a tradition or ceremonial or had, massive meaning and significance to my ancestors and things like that back in the day. So have you found that some of the things that maybe you were already doing in your everyday life, or some things that, sparked an interest, have you found that there's similarities or that it's related to your Celtic traditions?
Yes, I think that's been, the fun part. The biggest and probably largest umbrella of that would just be the connection to earth and connection to earth cycles. In those traditions, in those practices, there were ceremonies, there were festivals, so much that honored, the different seasons that we went through and how it then related to ourselves in the human form, right? Just our connection to all living things and that remembrance. And something that I actually find pretty cool is my maiden name is actually Gallagher. So my dad's side of the family is super, super, super Irish, like super Irish. And a cool thing about the Irish tradition is there's this thing called turas, and I hope I'm saying it right, and I'm definitely not going to try to do an Irish accent, but right. Turas, and it's a word that means journey or pilgrimage or time, and it actually can mean all of those things at once. So journey, pilgrimage, time. And it refers to this like circular spiraling prayer and meditation form that people in Celtic countries would do as they walked around a sacred site. And what I find really cool about that is I have always been attracted to spirals. Like when I was in elementary school, I remember always drawing spirals all over everything, all of the time. Like that was the art on the front of my notebooks. That is what I doodled. I didn't explore any other shapes outside of the spiral. And so this spiral of life has always really resonated with me. And so when I was reading this book and came across that word and just knew that that was so closely and tightly and intimately linked to my ancestors, and then to begin picturing them. And I love to walk labyrinths, right? Which is the shape of a spiral. Yes. And so to know that thousands of years ago, with their bare feet on the earth, I have, ancestors that were walking that sacred spiral. So that's definitely something that lit me up when I kind of found that connection.
Love that. Yeah. Leah, I can go on and on with this conversation. I know that, time is of the essence.
We really could talk all day, my friend.
We really could. And we have, and we probably will again.
Well, tomorrow is fine.
But just, before we go, if there was something that you could share with a woman who maybe doesn't have, much connections to her past or to her, her lineage or her culture, what advice would you give to her? Maybe starting the journey or, doing the work herself? Are there any words of wisdom that you can share with the next woman?
I love this question. And I think it's also important to address this question because to honor all humans, walking on this journey, not everyone is blessed enough to even know their bloodline or be able to tap into that, right? So you're in this existence having no way to even go to ancestry.com. And so the invitation I would give everyone, regardless of if you have any way to connect those dots, is to take time to connect with the earth, right? Take time to get quiet and connect with the earth, because throughout time, really all of our ancestors had that knowing, had that connection to the cycles, to the power of this actual earth, this planet that we're on. And then also, I think just being open, right? Opening your heart and just having quiet moments with yourself where you invite your ancestors in prayer or meditation. Just open your heart and say, I am here. Similar to what I did when I wanted to commune with my ancestors and have them send messages. And then I found that book at Goodwill. I mean, you can't make that stuff up. It's literally called The Celtic Spirit. And that's what I was seeking, was the ceremony, the spirit piece of my ancestors. And so to do something similar, just to have a sacred moment with yourself, even with the earth, bare feet, hands on the earth, that would be beautiful too. And just say a prayer that I'm here and I'm open and I want to connect with you and I want to honor you. But because they walked, we walk. And it's so beautiful to honor the magnitude of that.
I love that. Thank you so much for that. Before we go, please tell people how they can connect with you.
Absolutely. So my event company is called Her Sacred Circle Event Company. It's hersacredcircle.com. On Instagram, it's Her Sacred Circle. And then I actually have an online Facebook group with over 3,000 women all over the world connecting in virtual sisterhood on the daily. And that Facebook group is called Her Sacred Circle Goddess Collective.
Thank you so much, Leah. I appreciate you, and we will talk with you soon.
Yes, thank you, my love. What an honor.
Thank you.
Wow, that was such a great conversation. I really hope that you enjoyed listening to Leah's story as much as I did. As I mentioned, Leah is a really good friend of mine, a close sister of mine, and I am just fascinated by how she uses her, traditions to help women today. I absolutely love sitting in her circles. I love witnessing some of the ceremonial things that she does with women. And so if you are looking to connect more deeply with yourself, if you are looking to remember who you are as a woman, I encourage you to get in contact with Leah DeLuzio. And as always, remember to discover your inner sparkle and let it shine, because the world is waiting on you to just be you. See you guys soon.